Let's jump into this first story. And it's silly. And it's stupid. It's also kind of creepy. From the South China Morning Post, WWE superstar John Cena is very sorry to Chinese fans for referring to Taiwan as a country in Fast and Furious 9 promotional interview. There's a ninth Fast and the Furious movie, you guys.
Why?
I've long said the FFCU, the best cinematic universe. Anyway, John Cena said on Taiwanese TV that it would be the first country to watch the film. The American quickly backtracked on Weibo, saying he made one mistake after doing a lot of interviews. It's kind of creepy. He said, "Hi, China. I'm John Cena. I'm in the middle of a Fast and Furious 9 promotions. I'm doing a lot of interviews. I made a mistake in one of my interviews. Everyone was asking me if I could use Chinese. Staff gave me a lot of information. So there was a lot of interviews and information," said Cena, who started learning Mandarin to help his wrestling promotion integration in China. He has since gone viral many times for his enthusiastic Mandarin speaking abilities. I respect him for trying. Absolutely. "I made one mistake. I have to say something very, very important now. I love and respect China and Chinese people. I'm very, very sorry about my mistake. I apologize. I'm very sorry. You must understand that I really love, really respect China and the Chinese people. My apologies. See you. All I heard was, please keep giving me money. Please keep giving me money. I don't want to lose money." There are more than 5,000 comments on Cena's Weibo apology. Quote, "Please say in Chinese that Taiwan is part of China. Otherwise, we won't accept it," wrote one Weibo user. The message has over 3,200 likes. "Then you should say Taiwan is China's," wrote another user. "What you have said in the video is nonsense. You can't take benefits from China, but in the meantime, do things to harm China's interests." Others supported Cena, with one person writing, "I like you. I think you truly love China. Don't talk carelessly again about China's territory and sovereignty." So, of course, it's a silly story in a lot of ways. I'm not sure how much it really matters, but it's a grain of sand in a bigger heap of many, companies, sports. We had the NBA. You couldn't put Free Hong Kong on a jersey. They wouldn't allow it. It would say error. Can't you'd make a custom jersey and you try to put Free Hong Kong. No, can't do it. We've seen in many esports, people have said Free Hong Kong out. And so it's curious. We had Cassandra Fairbanks on, and she made really good points about not wanting to go to war with China under any circumstances, even the things we're seeing that are bad. And there's some deep philosophical questions here. The big thing I take issue with things like John Cena being deferential to China is that there's clearly American interests. Is he more interested in making money by expanding his business into China, which means supporting Chinese interests against American interests? I don't think there's a way to play both sides on this one, right? In America, we as a country, we respect Taiwan. As a country, we do. So people are allowed to have their own opinions. John Cena wants to be, I guess he wants to be in line with China because he's got money to be made there. And so what ends up happening is China doesn't tolerate the free speech in the same way the U.S. does. John Cena can say this. What's the worst that's going to happen? We're going to insult him. Maybe if he says something truly egregious, we'll boycott him. In China, he has to come out and apologize. In the U.S., he wouldn't do it. So that means so long as they're more authoritarian in their speech, or I should say more collectivist, then they're going to keep winning a lot of these corporate battles, which means a lot more resources will flow towards China away from the U.S. And that will incentivize the political class to continue extracting resources through sending out our manufacturing and things like that. But in terms of the broader point, which is Thucydides' trap, you're probably familiar with this. Yeah. Scott, which is, are we heading towards war with China because of their economic expansion? I'm curious, your thoughts, I guess. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? My personal opinion, I think it's really bad because I think a lot of what we're seeing with these corporations going to China is bad because I'm concerned about individualism, liberty, and what happens to the world if China becomes a superpower that supplants the U.S. and starts doing what the U.S. is doing, but with Chinese communist authoritarianism instead of classical liberalism. I understand from a historical perspective, not from the current American perspective, but at the very least we have a constitution, right?
Sure.
So I'm curious, what do you think?
Well, listen, I think you're onto something that it's a real worry when American, media characters and companies are so heavily invested in China or so heavily dependent on Chinese money that then, it undermines American values like free speech and things like you're talking about there. We saw this with And, we're at the humorous stage of this, right? It could get a lot worse. John Cena and some basketball players and stuff.
Right.
The one that I thought was really funny was when they remade Red Dawn. In which
Yeah.
I'm an 80s kid, so I love the original Red Dawn. In fact, I just watched it recently, and it's just hilarious and wonderful. But I watched the remake of it, and it's just an absolute catastrophe. And the movie, I guess it came out like pretty near after the '08 crash. And so the idea was that the American government, clearly after George W. Bush, was so irresponsible, right, and had run America into the ground so badly that then the Chinese were going to take the advantage and conquer North America, which is about as silly as the Russians doing it back in the 80s, by the way.
But it was North Korea, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, they switched it, right? So this is what happened. When they filmed the movie, they had... I remember there was a lady named Karen DeCoster that wrote for LouRockwell.com that was talking about how they were filming the movie in Chicago, and they had big red Chinese flags hanging down and all these things. She's like, oh, they're remaking Red Dawn, and it's China this time. But then by the time the movie came out, it wasn't China anymore. Now it's North Korea. And so if you watch it, then like the beginning of the movie is like a 10-minute or like a little 5-minute news montage to try to explain the story of how North Korea ended up conquering all of Asia and then came across the Pacific Ocean for us next. And it's the most ridiculous thing. And the movie was just terrible anyway. It had no redeeming quality anyway. But it was just the fact that they had to change it from something that was mildly plausible, right? Like China is...
They got to sell the movie in China.
Somewhat of a... Yeah, they have to sell the movie in China. That's it. So they had to change it. And so I think that could be a problem. But I think, look, overall... the more investment that we have in China and the more investment that they have here, the better off we all are and the safer we are from violent conflict. That's the famous quote from Frederick Bastiat, where goods do not cross borders, soldiers will. And so we're better off. If you remember when China shot down the spy plane in 2001 and Colin Powell made peace real quick, said sorry, and then I forgot if they got the plane back or not.
I don't know.
But they resolved it really quickly, and that was because of Wall Street and the amount of investments that they have in China dictated that we keep things cool. But now there's another major competing interest in corporate America besides, Walmart and all those guys, and that is the shipbuilders and the long-range bomber manufacturers. And they have a major interest in pursuing Cold War with China and ratcheting these things up.
Right.
So what we have, in a way, is a war between big business factions in America. Those who want to import and sell cheap crap, or whatever it is, versus those who want to sell weapons to the captive market that is the Pentagon. And those are huge, big-ticket items. When you're talking about the next generation long-range bomber, that's $1 trillion.
No, I think it is true, right? Trade lines make it harder for there to be war. The problem is everybody thought that with opening up trade to China, they would start to adopt more of our values. And it seems like that's not happening. The Chinese Communist Party is still very much ideologically driven and in control of most of these companies. And it seems like it's actually just resulting in the extraction of American manufacturing. Wealthy elites have found a path towards extracting the labor from the U.S., making money by shipping things overseas. Right. And there is very much that idea. I think, we saw this with a lot of the establishment Democrats 10 years ago, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, this idea like, let's give them a bunch of stuff with this trade deal. It'll make it harder for there to be war. But the TPP was nightmarish. Trump was like, I got to shut this down. There was, Ian often brings it up that the corporations in foreign countries could then sue Americans.
Yeah, the investor state dispute settlement clause in the TPP said that if we wanted to not buy Malaysian oil for some reason, they could sue us for discrimination, and then the taxpayer would have to fund the lawsuit.
What ends up happening is, while it may be true, or that in many circumstances you'll get some crossover where people might actually come together, that means we have to start adopting Chinese the Communist Party's ideological values.
Well, it doesn't mean that, right? I mean, for example, these basketball stars or whoever could go a lot more broke crossing the American people and selling out our values of free speech than pleasing the Chinese, right? I mean, is John Cena going to sacrifice his American audience for a Chinese one, or he wants to have it both ways?
But this is the issue that I was mentioning, that the ramifications from the American audience who aren't paying attention to politics is that they're going to shrug and say, I don't care. Whereas the Chinese audience is very much heavily invested and very, very, pro-China. So John Cena could come out and say, look, it's where's the most damage? If he says Taiwan is a country, then he loses tons of money in China. If he says Taiwan is not a country, then nothing's going to happen to him in the United States. So he defers to China. That's a grain of sand. You do that over and over again. Eventually, you have this heap where you look at the companies that want to be in China. Google, for instance. In order for a company to operate in China, they have to have a Chinese Communist Party member in that company, in that office, in the country. So now Google starts, you start seeing protests in the U.S. when Google was developing a Chinese censored search engine.
Right. People
protested. Google claimed to shut it down. I guess I'm not sure. We have to have the experts back on, but there's rumors that Google just decided to just give in and start doing what they wanted. The American people, too many of them, don't care and don't pay attention. And so because of that, these companies are like, what's our risk? You can piss off Americans, but Americans don't pay attention, so they probably won't do anything anyway. But these other countries that are much more invested in their country will get mad. So let's just make sure we're keeping them happy. And then over a long enough period of time, it seems like we're becoming too deferential to China because our business interests are.
Yeah. But then again, look at all the backlash against the NBA stars who, said everybody be quiet about Hong Kong or whatever a couple of years ago. And I don't know exactly the backlash against Cena, but there's a substantial one about this, right? He's beclowning himself, selling out, what he obviously thought, as you just said, all I hear is money, money, money. Right. Which, by the way, the situation with Taiwan is very complicated. After the Civil War, the nationalists escaped to Taiwan, and then the Americans sailed the Seventh Fleet in there, I guess,
right,
and prevented Mao's forces from following them and conquering them. And then from 1949 through like 74, America only recognized Taiwan as the official legitimate government of China, even though they really only ruled this tiny island, and all of mainland China had been under the rule of the Maoists for, by that time, like 30-something years. And so Nixon and Kissinger, in a move that was really made to, one, screw the Soviet Union, and two, kind of ameliorate from the fact that he was pulling us out of Vietnam by saying, well, don't worry about the domino effect because we made friends with the Maoists. So now that we're friends with China, it doesn't matter so much that we're losing in Vietnam. And so they recognized China as, the communist government in Beijing as the official government of China, which was only reasonable. But then they adopted this policy of strategic ambiguity when it comes to the fate of Taiwan. And so America has no treaty with Taiwan, and we're not sworn to protect them. But since Nixon, and various presidents say this in different ways, Trump almost accidentally changed the doctrine in the way that he stated it, but then his State Department walked it back. But essentially, the position is that there is one China, and the government in Beijing is the official government of all of China, including Taiwan, but that America will always oppose the reunification by force. But then, in what way will we oppose it? Will we sell F-16s to Taiwan? If so, how many? And then if that doesn't work, then what? And this is the real crisis now, is let's say that the Chinese decide that we're taking back Taiwan next year. What's America going to do about it?
Joe Biden?
Well, what's any American president, what's your favorite American president going to do about it? He's going to get into a nuclear war. He's going to lose Tokyo and Honolulu and Los Angeles in exchange for Taipei. And what do we get out of that? Nothing. And what do we really care if the Chinese conquer Taiwan? What difference does that make to you or me at all, other than we're against war, we don't want to see anybody violently killed?
Well,
but in terms of the American people's national interest, there's not one town, much less major city, we should be willing to trade for Taipei. And by the way, if we got into a nuclear war with China over Taiwan, they'd get Taiwan at the end of the day anyway. We'd end up losing LA and San Francisco and getting nothing out of it in exchange.
Already, like in my mind, I can see like the path of like the conflict and the arguments over for and against that I hear so often from, I wouldn't necessarily say the pro-war people, but the like, I don't think, well, there's probably people who say they're pro-war for sure, but most people try to pass it off like it's war essentialism. Like, I wish we didn't have to have it,
right,
but we do.
Well, see, this is what you're talking about with I always forget how to pronounce it, the Greek trap there. The
Thucydides trap.
Thucydides trap.
Thucydides.
Thucydides. I can never say it right.
He was a guy.
So, but here's
he was a guy.
He was a guy.
The thing of it is that if America would just renounce our world empire which we're not supposed to have in the first place,
That's right.
then it wouldn't matter that China is the rising power. The reason this is a trap is because America has declared that the entire Pacific Ocean is an American lake, and we won't settle for only 99%. All of it belongs to us, or we'll go to war over the idea. But that's not legitimate. So if China becomes, again, the dominant power in East Asia, as it's always been for thousands of years, then we have to go to war against that? Or we have to recognize that this is the middle part of North America. And that sounds to me like Japan and Korea and Vietnam's problem, not mine.
Yeah. I mean, if you look back at I would assume a lot of the intent of the founding fathers was not to do any of this. But at a certain
point, they
point,
warned us explicitly
Right.
against foreign engagement like
Yep.
this in entangling alliances, whether, with European powers or anyone else you could imagine. And
it
and
changed
foreign intervention all together.
World War I think it changed everything.
That's right.
All
Wilson.
of a sudden now it was every war was our responsibility. We became the world police. But let's get a little philosophical, I suppose. So we've had different experts, on talking about China.
Sure.
If Biden can't defend Taiwan, then we can already see China's expansion, the claims of the South China Sea, the attacking of the Vietnamese fishing vessels. They'll just expand and exert influence and take over. And so the fear is, what happens if the U.S. does nothing? Do we eventually have a China that does what the U.S. does? And do you want to?
I don't think so.
But look at the Belt and Road Initiative.
They would be insane to look at what America's done for the last 20, 30 years and say, let's replicate that. We'll build 800 bases all around the world, and then we'll kill 2 million Iraqis and Syrians and Yemenis, and then we'll blow our own brains out, and our civilization will collapse.
Oh boy.
Why would they do that? Could they
well,
possibly be as dumb as the Bushes and the Clintons?
They're building their bases on nuclear submarines, so they're mobile and underwater.
They are expanding the atolls, but I will say this. I do think there is a certain efficiency in the Chinese Communist Party's authoritarianism. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying that you rule with an iron fist. They dictate and they have a plan for what they're going to do. Whereas in the U.S., we have regime change every 4 years almost. Like one guy wants to go blow up this country. George W. is mad about Saddam and his dad's fight, so he wants to bring it back. Then Obama's like, I guess there's money to be made. So Joe Biden gets his brother some contract deals in Iraq. When you look at what's happening in the U.S., it's the extraction of value for personal gain.
Yeah.
And it leads us, I look at what the authoritarian, the Chinese Communist Party, what they do is it's rigid, it's constructed, it's controlled, there's a plan there. They're very rigid. And I look at the U.S. and it's chaotic exploitation by the elites. Yeah. They don't care about you, they don't care about us.
But you really think the Chinese plan is world empire rather than just shoring up their own area?
I know.
This is a desperately poor country with millions of hungry people.
But look at what they've been doing in Africa, South America. What was it, the Belt and Road Initiative? That's
all men with briefcases, right? That's not militarism.
So
they have a tiny little military base in Djibouti, right? Otherwise, they traipse across Africa. We got special operations forces in more than half the countries in Africa. They've got guys with briefcases doing capital investments.
Which is interesting because it's a Chinese Communist Party using capitalism, using capitalist enterprise to gain control. Smart. They're buying up tons of our land. So my fear is I would not want to live the way people in Hong Kong are currently, with all the changes and the people being arrested, and in mainland China. I like being able to tell, I don't care who the president is, to F off or whatever. But there's been direct economic competition between China and the U.S. I don't necessarily think warfare needs to always be hot with guns. And so what happens when, yes, through economic exploitation, we end up deferential to the Chinese Communist Party? I'm not in any way advocating for what the U.S.'s stupid plans with sending guys with guns all over the place, because you can clearly see that China, using investment, is doing way better in many ways. We are wasting time and money because we have corporations, we have big military industrial, companies that just want to expand and make more. Even when Congress says, or even when the Army's like, we don't need any more tanks, Congress is like, rubber stamp it anyway, we just make them. It's good for the economy.
Right.
China's more strategic, so they got a longer plan than us, and I do think. I'm not going to be happy. I think most people wouldn't be happy if they had to live the way people in mainland China do.
Yeah, but it's kind of a leap though from John Cena to all of us having to apologize to the Chinese all day for this, that, or the other thing.
Of course,
frankly, their military doctrine, our government's acronym for it, or the way they call it, I don't know exactly the Chinese term for it, is anti-access, area denial. In other words, it's purely defensive. Their entire military strategy is about keeping the United States out,
But
keeping
they're
us
expanding.
away. So, yeah, but it's not a blue water navy. I mean, you talk about nuclear submarines. We have 22 aircraft carriers, 11 on station around the planet at all times. The U.S. Navy rules all the oceans and the 7 seas. The question here is, do we rule all of the South China Sea, or does China have influence in the South China Sea? And think how absurd this would be if we were talking about China's influence in the Gulf of Mexico. Right? And the Atlantic Ocean is now a Chinese lake. It would be absolutely absurd, in the same way that our claim to the Pacific Ocean and all of those territories is absurd. And so, yes, we are in a trap if we are pledged to defend the Koreas and Japan and Laos and Cambodia and Vietnam and Australia and every other, and Myanmar and every other country in Asia from China, then yes, we are definitely in a Greek guy trap, and we're going to have a nuclear war.
Guy trap.
Thucydides.
But the reality is that that's not in the interest of the American people whatsoever. So if the Chinese, like you're talking about, the difference between the people that run the American government have only these very narrow interests, and the Chinese government seems to have kind of broader plans. I don't think that makes them necessarily any more of a threat.
You know, the defensive pact of World War I is basically what started it. Someone had a pact with, I don't know, was it the Hungarian Empire or something?
Yeah, the Germans and the Ottomans and
then
Austro-Hungarians.
So someone got invaded, then there was a defensive response. So like if Taiwan was invaded, and the American defensive response would kick off a bunch of nations joining and defending each other, and then a world war. But when you look at World War II, Hitler invaded Poland. And if we had not done anything, they set up, basically they used the conquered area of Poland to build more military. They were using their industry. So they were planning to invade Russia. So at what point, if you see a foreign invasion, do you intervene?
Well,
that's the deep philosophical debate.
When they attack you.
But what if they attack everyone around you and start building more weapons with that industry?
Well, look, France is not around me. And this was the lie of the 1930s and early 40s, was that, look, France is our eastern frontier. Well, no, it's not.
It's like 5,000, 6,000
France
miles
is
away.
not part of America at all. And it's not our frontier at all. These are all just figures of speech, right? And in fact, if the British hadn't given a war guarantee to Poland, then Hitler would have never turned west against France and Denmark and Belgium and England and the Western democracies in the first place. As you say, they split Poland. He split Poland with the Soviet Union and made a peace with them, because he knew that he was going to have to fight them sooner or later. But the British and the French were insisting on fighting him. So he decided to to make a peace with Stalin and fight and destroy all the Western democracies first, and then move into the Soviet Union. So if the British had just stayed out of it, once he went into Poland, the war between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union was inevitable. And he would have never felt like he had to attack the Western democracies at all. The whole thing would have been in the East, which would have been a catastrophe for the people in the lands between Germany and the Soviet Union, but not for the Western democracies. And this all was self-inflicted. In fact, if you read Pat Buchanan's book, Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War, they talk about when Neville Chamberlain, everybody always makes fun of Neville Chamberlain for making peace over Czechoslovakia, right?
Yeah.
But he's the one he gave the war guarantee to Poland. And as soon as he did, Lord Grey, the foreign minister, said, "Oh my God, what are you doing? They should lock this man up in a mental hospital. Are you crazy? Why would you give a war guarantee to Poland? We have no ability to defend Poland. All you're doing is guaranteeing that we're going to get into a war with Germany that we're not prepared to fight yet." And meanwhile, what does any of this have to do with FDR and the American people back home, other than his New Deal failed for 3 administrations in a row, and so now he had to get us into a war?
So why did Hitler attack the UK?
Because they declared war on him first.
Is that what happened?
That's what happened.
Yeah, when they
and
invaded
listen, when that war
Poland-
was
Yeah,
over,
right.
when that war was over, Winston Churchill said, I guess we stuck the wrong pig.
Well, didn't Germany?
Yeah, really, huh?
Germany had a military force in their west preparing to invade France, regardless, I think. Like they were ready to go when France declared war. They went, like 2 weeks later, they went into Paris. with tanks.
Well, I don't want to do it.
Do
like,
World
it is-
War II
it's
for
tough
the
to
rest of
know.
the show.
Yeah. Because I want to
When you
keep
have a
it to the
belligerent that is going to invade, at what point do you say, I need to declare counter war?
The philosophical question that I wanted to get to before we started going off on history stuff is, I guess the philosophical argument for those that are war essentialists is that, well, if we don't do it, they will, and I'd rather be on top of the mountain than the bottom of it, and that's like a very nightmarish prospect. But I think, I don't know. Do you cross your fingers and hope no one's going to do it?
Yeah,
I think
look,
they would, though.
No, I don't think they would.
You think only America is the country that wants to have these bases?
Well, look, the American people are the only ones who can afford it, and we can't even afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Chinese can't afford
Because
it.
of the petrodollar.
It's all
Look,
alone.
and the reality is we had in the Cold War with the Soviet Union this bipolar world where it was really America ruled 2/3 of the planet and the communists ruled 1/3 of it, right? And then when all that fell apart, this is what Charles Krauthammer, the neocon, called our unipolar moment. This is when we get to spend the next about 20 years making the world exactly how we want it. Before, not that America will get weaker, but before the rest of the world starts getting rich and their power starts becoming more equal to ours. And then so this has been seen all along as an eventuality that what we'll have is a multipolar world.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.